LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I got TikTok going on my phone because I can't yet do it from my desktop. Just going to kick things off here 1 sec. Got to make sure my chat's working. I can see people joining chat, so that's good. Hey, folks on TikTok, if you're new to this, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will try to answer. All right, today's topic is going to be about, it's going to sound kind of funny. It's about being kind to yourself as a software engineer. And this is advice that is applicable to people that aren't just software engineers, but I find it's pretty common that this kind of thing comes up, especially for software engineers, because there is a lot of stress in general. I mean, like I said, this applies to other jobs, but we hold ourselves to high standards. So as a result of that, sometimes we're not very kind to ourselves. So I did write a newsletter article about this. It's kind of a theme for my live streams that I do on Mondays here. And I'm going to put that into the chat. But for folks on TikTok, I'm sorry. I can't yet send you links in the chat very easily. So we'll do that soon. But into the chat for everyone else, there you go. It's incoming. This is at weekly.devleader.ca. This is where my newsletter is if you're interested. But if you don't want to read it and you just want to tune into these live streams, that's cool too. So in typical fashion, if you haven't done or been on my live streams before, please feel free to ask questions as I'm going through. I'm happy to pivot about whatever I'm talking about to answer your questions. It's probably more valuable for you and other people if I'm answering your questions and not just blabbing about stuff that I think is important. So please feel free to ask away. I do monitor the chat. If you're watching this and it's recorded, obviously, I can't answer your questions live. So feel free to join the next time. You can leave comments on the video. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm happy to answer stuff for you. Please do that. Happy to engage with you. Okay. So to kick things off, when I talk about being kind to yourself, I was kind of making some jokes about this on social media last week, that it seems kind of funny that we are generally a lot more kind to other people and we don't really give ourselves the same respect, right? So what I was kind of alluding to in some of my posts and stuff was that it's very top of mind for a lot of us to, especially if you're already in industry, for example. You might be helping out the junior engineers, right? You might be helping interns on board. You're helping more junior engineers. You're working with other stakeholders that are new to the team and stuff, and you're helping them get acquainted. We often go out of our way to go help other people, right? We're kind to others because it's the right thing to do. We understand that if we're helpful to others, they can get better, they can do better. And we lean into this a lot, most of the time, right? Not everyone's like this, or sometimes you might think you know some people that don't act like this, but I feel like most of us do this. We go out of our way to be kind to others, right? So this comes up, like I said, all the time. You can think about code reviews, right? If you've been on pull requests and code reviews, especially for people that are new to the team, you can imagine someone's doing their first pull request on your team. It's probably going to be pretty likely that there's going to be a lot of feedback for this person, right? They haven't coded up to your standards before for your team, right? They might be new to the technology, new to the domain. It could be any number of things, right? And they're going to get a lot of feedback. That's the reality. But if you imagine having gone through this situation before, usually what you do is you also let the person know that they've done a good job, right? Like, good job for getting your first one up. Sorry, there's so much feedback. You're going to do great. Like, we encourage people. We are kind to others, right? We do this a lot. So I'm going to keep scrolling through my article here so I can come up with some other examples for you. But depending where you work, and for folks that aren't yet employed, this is a relatively common thing. It's not the same at every company, but sometimes you're in positions where there's like what's called like a 360 feedback type of thing. So that's where you get feedback not just from a manager to the direct report, but you might be getting feedback between individuals, right? So your manager might ask you to give feedback about someone else, or at Microsoft, we have this thing that's called perspectives. And perspectives are super handy, and they're an opportunity for you to give feedback to someone else that you've worked with. It doesn't have to be directly on your team. It could be another team that you participated in some projects with. and you give them feedback, and the managers are able to also see that feedback because it helps us get some, also have that perspective, right, that you're giving to the other people. And it's pretty common in perspectives that you'll see very positive feedback for people. I do encourage you to try and give constructive feedback where possible. That was previous talk that we did together here. But often you'll see like very positive feedback given to people, right? We are kind to others. And I think that a lot of people lean into this so much in these types of situations because we want to get that positive feedback too, right? You're being kind to others, so they'll be kind to you. You want their manager to have a positive outlook about this person. You're giving them that good feedback. By the way, I've told people this before, giving people constructive criticism does not, as a manager, does not mean that I look at that person and like, oh, they must suck. They got some feedback that said it would be great if they could work on this, therefore they suck. Like, absolutely not. It's awesome to see people improve on things. Hello, Xcoding on Twitch. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. So that's a whole other topic about feedback, but generally what I see is that people are very kind to each other when giving feedback, right? I talked about the like interns and new employees, right? Some people will sign up, especially for interns. Even like this past sort of period that we had at Microsoft, we had one of my engineers volunteered to be like sort of the intern's mentor the entire time, which is awesome. She did an amazing job, but she went completely out of her way to help this individual, right? Like this was above and beyond. She did great work, but she's being kind to this individual, right? She's making like basically she's already at capacity for all of her work, but she's putting in extra effort to try and help this person. She wants them to succeed. And I can tell based on how she's coaching and mentoring this individual, it's not just, you know, I signed up for it, I hate it, let me get the job done. It's like, no, she wants them to succeed. She's being kind to this individual. So a more specific example, because I talked about pull requests and stuff like that. Another thing that we see is just like being helpful with our teammates, right? If you've, for those of you that haven't worked on like a live service where you're maybe solving some live site incidents and stuff like that, this can still happen if you're helping with tech support and there's like bugs and stuff that come in. But when you go through this problem solving phase, you know, you might be asking for logs, you're trying to reproduce things, but you go through all of this effort to go explore stuff, right? And it's not uncommon that you end up documenting this process and you might go, hey, I'm going to help the team by sharing this information back, whether it's, you know, documenting it in a wiki or an email thread where you can lay everything out and people can see it. You might do a discussion about it. So you'll do like prepare a talk and explain. But this is yet another example of like trying to help. You're being kind to the rest of your team so you can all do better. You're not saying, hey, screw you guys, like it's all on you next time this comes up, right? So there's so much that we do. So much that we do to go and help others and be kind to them. And for those of you that are like, I don't do any of that stuff. I mean, my first action takeaway that was in my newsletter was try to start doing that. I think most people do, right? I think most of us are aligned to that kind of thing. We see it as a positive thing to do. But if you're like, hey, I only focus on my own stuff, like it's me, I got to get my work done because my work's the only stuff that matters. I feel like this is a pretty rare thing. It's not impossible. It's pretty rare that people are very self-focused like that. But I would say step one is, you know, make sure that you are trying to find ways to help others. That was kind of the framing of getting things going, right? So it's not uncommon that we are kind to others, but it does seem to be pretty uncommon that we're kind to ourselves. And I went on to say in my article here, like, a way that we have to experience growth is that we are going to be faced with challenges, right? You need to be faced with challenges so that you can overcome them to grow. If you're only doing the things that you're comfortable with, that you know how to do all of the time, and you just keep doing them, and there's no challenge, there's nothing new, odds are you're going to have a difficult time growing, right? It's like you can use an analogy of being in the gym. If you always lift the same weights, right? There's going to be a period in the beginning where you'll get stronger because it's kind of new to you. But if you just kept lifting the exact same weight and you never tried to lift anything heavier or change up some other variables, you're probably going to plateau. You're just not going to see improvements because you're not challenging your body. right? So it's the same thing when it comes to growth in software engineering, maybe with a little bit less muscle mass or strength. But when it comes to your skills, your experiences, and things like that, you do need to be challenging yourself. You need to be trying things that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And like I said, we generally, as software engineers, hold ourselves to very high standards. And I wanted to talk about high standards for a bit because I don't want people to hear what I'm saying and it's like, oh, well, it's bad to have high standards. I think absolutely not. I think it's great to have high standards, right? I think personally, I think that this is something that when people have high standards for themselves, they try to achieve excellence. They want to do good things. They try to take ownership. These are like, I'm kind of generalizing, but some common traits that you might see in people that set a high bar for themselves, right? They are trying to do better. They set the bar high and they say like, no, this is my expectation. I need to be achieving at this level for me to like feel successful, for me to grow. And this is like, it's a framing. Personally, I like doing this kind of thing for myself. I found that I've had success in my career by doing this. It's not just like I'm going to go to work and like whatever's on the board for today for stories and bugs, I'm just going to chip away at them. It's like, no, like there's so much more going on. There's so many more opportunities. And a lot of the time it's going to mean getting a little bit uncomfortable, right? So we set this high bar, we got uncomfortable. But one of the challenges is that when we have this high bar set, it's so easy for us to get on our own back about it, right? So you set the bar high, and when the bar is set very high, it will mean that there are periods of time where you're going to fail. And I use the F word here. Some people get uncomfortable with the F word, the failure word. I also want to pause to talk about failure because I think some people hear it and it makes them uncomfortable because you don't want to fail. But when I've talked, there's a colleague of mine or former colleague of mine, a really good friend of mine, we podcast about engineering management. And one of the things that I bring up in our podcast semi-regularly is this idea of big F failures and little F failures. And this is just my mental model for it, but there's tons of other ways to look at this. But the idea is that when you fail at something. It's a little F failure when you fail. Something doesn't go as planned, right? You broke the build, you had a bug in production, anything, right? You set some milestones, you didn't achieve them. It's a little F failure because we're human and you're going to have failures. It's only normal that not everything is going to go perfect because you are human. And that's okay. That's a little F failure. And if you're working in a safe environment, psychological safety, that you have mechanisms in place that you're not going to basically, the whole company's not going to go under because of one bug or something like that. You have all these things in place to be safe to fail for little F failures. And little F failures are the things that allow us to grow and learn because you take the little F failures and you go, hey, that didn't work. That didn't go as planned. We don't like whatever's happening as a result of this little F failure. And you take the little F failure and you say, well, what can we do better next time? Right? This comes up in software engineering all the time. Your retrospectives, your post-incident reviews, or sometimes we call them postmortems. You take these opportunities to go say, what can we do differently to not have this happen? So you're looking at your little F failure. A little F failure might have a pretty big impact, but it's a little F failure still because you're going through these mechanisms for learning opportunities, analysis about what you can do better. And then the next time you try it, hopefully you don't have another little F failure. Now, my opinion, if you keep doing the same thing and resulting in little F failures because you are not adjusting and learning, this becomes a big F failure. It's a big F failure. And when I say big and little f, I just mean the capitalization of the word. Like, it's a failure. It's a true failure if you're just not learning and you're not doing anything better. It doesn't mean the next time you try it, you can't have 2 little F failures in a row. Maybe what you wanted to try isn't the right solution. That's okay. But you need to be learning and trying things so that you stop having the same little F failure. If you give up and you don't try again, your little F failure becomes a big F failure. You failed, you didn't correct it, you didn't learn from it. So this is the mental model I use for failure. And that's why I talk about failure like it's okay. Because I do expect that you will fail, and I do hope that you will learn from your failures. These are two important things. So again, we only have big F failures or truly fail at something if we give up or we're just not putting in the effort to learn and do better. Okay? So you are going to have failures. And I think what happens, it's pretty common where people go, oh no, I failed. And it's a little F failure, right? This is what I'm trying to get at. It's not the end of the world, but they go, I've set the bar up here. I'm pretty short. So when I say up here, I mean like I'm only 5'4", but I mean like somewhere up a little bit higher than 5'4". It's up high. And when you fail and you have the bar set high, it's easy to get down on yourself, right? You're like I blew it. Like, I suck. This is embarrassing. You have all these different types of emotions depending on what the issue was and how you failed, or you get down on yourself. Right? I'm going to look stupid in front of my colleagues. I have to talk to my manager about this. Like he or she's going to think that I'm an idiot and I can't do my job properly, or I have to go present this post-incident review. People are going to judge me. Like, this is such a silly mistake. How could I have ever done this? I'm never going to get my promotion now. Do I have to work extra hard? Do I have to do more work? Like, you have all these things. Then you start creating this pressure on yourself. And I truly feel like this is like a bit of the side effect of setting the bar high, right? And we have to set the bar high for folks that are, again, like if you're new to software engineering, or you're trying to get into the software engineering field, like we all know it's very competitive right now to get in, right? It's like, it's very challenging for people to land their first jobs, or if you're trying to transition roles and stuff, it's very challenging. So yeah, the bar is set high, right? And the people that are, I'm not saying there's going to be people that kind of luck out and they happen to get their resume in front of the right person, get the right interview, and everything lines up. It's possible, right? But we set the bar high so we can do better because it's competitive, right? And then on Twitch chat, it's, too competitive, but makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of people going for stuff, and there, over the past couple of years, there's been layoffs and stuff too. So there's a lot of people in the market, and of course, there's always more and more people trying to be software engineers coming on. There's this fear of like AI replacing all the software engineers, which I disagree with. I'll comment on this briefly. I think AI is going to change software engineering, like it will many roles. But the way that I look at AI coming into play is that it will obsolete the mundane, repetitive things. I guess like more automation of sorts has replaced repetitive things, but AI will replace other sorts of mundane things. It will mean that as software engineers, we get to focus on other types of problems. So software engineering does not go away. It just changes the things that we have to spend our time on, because we have AI to help us, just like we've had automation replace other things. So we have a lot of competition. So in chat here, beside of competition is the quality delivery. AI will impact the help but not replace. Exactly, yeah, right. We're gonna have like an augmentation of software engineers and lots of other roles outside of software engineering in general, right? It's going to help a lot of things. It will replace things that are not able to adjust to it. So there will be roles, or there will be software engineers that basically aren't taking on AI as a way to help them. And if they're only kind of operating at some level, then yes, of course, AI will be able to replace them. I've talked about, for example, different testing roles. Right? I have nothing against software testing. I think we need to be doing software testing. But there are certain software testing roles that if you're not adapting to what's going on, you'll be replaced by different things. You can have teams of engineers who are focused on testing, working with product, and putting automation in place that will replace people that only did a very narrow set of testing. Doesn't mean it's going to replace all testers. Just means that there's a very narrow set of people that start getting replaced. And then in chat, I just hope that the new devs will read the AI output before pasting and learning something from it. Yeah, so that's going to be another interesting thing that we'll see over the next few years, right? Is this idea that you have access to something where, like, what we used to be able to do is search for things. And I mean, we still do this. Search for things. We poke through all the answers that we see on Stack Overflow, on blogs, wherever, and we go, oh, this, I'll try a couple of these things and like which solution fits. We copy paste it, massage it a little bit, we get it working, cool. And through that process, yeah, like someone kind of gave you a set of answers, but you still have to kind of poke around and figure it out. But the amount of customization and like through prompting that you can give an LLM to say, hey, I got a pretty specific problem, go build it for me. And it can do a decent job. A lot of the time there's a ton of bugs, but do a decent job, better than if you had no idea what to do. It can probably set you off in the right direction. And the more that we lean into that and just start blindly trusting it, especially as the LLMs get better, it'll be kind of interesting to see how things change. We don't want to lose our understanding of how these things work, of course, but there's going to be things where we may not have to know in as much detail. They just don't make sense to know in as much detail because you never have to do them in as much detail. Yeah, and then in chat, this is what scares me a little, that we'll get poor quality stuff in big picture, right? Yeah. So this is, you know, something that we all have to be mindful of as we go forward with AI. I think it's important. We have to think about it. It's not going anywhere. Something to think about. Okay, so talking about being kind to ourselves, kind of got to the point of like growth. What do we need for growth? We're setting this bar high. We're going to be failing at things. That's okay, right? And then people get down on themselves. They're not kind to themselves because they are experiencing failures. You might feel embarrassed. You might feel all these other emotions, but you get down on yourself for doing it. So the pivot here that I want people to make is that I think you still can set the bar high. Kind of scrolling through my newsletter here. You can set the bar high for yourself, but you need to change the framing. And this is something I wanted to share this because I want to say like I never believed it. And it's negative self-talk. I never really believed this because it kind of felt like people say like woo-woo, like it's just kind of, there's nothing really backing it, right? It's like, prove it. Like you're just kind of making a statement, but prove it. How do you know it works? Like, so negative self-talk is something where I was like, it doesn't matter. Like you're just saying words. But I think I was taking it too literally. Like you say the words and somehow the words themselves manifest. And I'm like, that's obviously ridiculous. It's not just magic, right? But the negative self-talk thing over the past couple of years, I've been taking that to heart. And I do find it makes a huge difference. But I had to stop being so literal about like, yeah, man, like you're saying the words, you're not casting a spell and like summoning bad things when you say the negative things. But it's about framing. And I thought that this was really important to share because I think that if you change the framing up and stop being so hard on yourself, you can start looking at your failures as opportunities for doing better. Right? It's not, I failed, this is embarrassing, I failed, people are going to laugh at me, I failed, people are going to think I'm stupid, I failed, I'm not going to get a promotion. Like, you got to stop that. Right? And I'm not saying it's easy. Like, you can't just snap your fingers. Right? But it's you have to change this framing. In chat, criticism can always be constructive. 100% yes. 100% yes. I've even tried to demonstrate on social media over the past year where I've had people say some outright rude things to me or things that I thought were just like, that's a ridiculous thing to say. And I have tried to make sure that when I post about it, I try to, anonymize the person because I don't want people to get bashed or whatever. It's not fair. But I post about it to say, look, this person said something and I really didn't like it. I didn't think that it was good feedback. The feedback's not presented in a good way. more like they're just trying to be rude or mean, is how it comes across. But let's see what we can extract. What kind of value can we get out of this? One example is, this is going to be not software engineering specific, but it's still relevant because we're talking about feedback based on this comment here. For my YouTube videos, people use filler words a lot, right? You're probably noticing as I'm talking live here, because I'm not editing my live stream, that there's going to be filler words like I just said there, right? I'm probably doing a lot of them that I don't even realize. The more you practice talking, the less filler words you end up doing. You have to be conscious of that. But I was making YouTube videos and using the word actually a lot, and I had no idea. And someone watched a YouTube video and their comment was just like, you actually said the word actually like 47 times in like 3 minutes. And the comment itself was kind of like poking fun at me, like, look, well, this is at least how I took it, right? Like, you're being an idiot. You can't even speak properly. And you made a video like this, like, you should be embarrassed. And that's how I felt. I'm reading this being like, man, like, I suck. Like, that is, and I watched it back, and the the hard truth was he wasn't wrong. I said the word actually an outrageous number of times. So it was like, okay, he's got a point. And you can't control how other people give you feedback. You can't control anyone, and you shouldn't try to. But what you can control is how you respond to things. So I tried to use it as a teaching example to say, hey, when you give people feedback, try not to do it this way. Here's why. Because you want people to be receptive to your feedback. If you say things in a way where people will get defensive, feel offended, it's not going to land well. For most people, right? They're going to say, like, why are you doing that? Go away. I didn't ask for your opinion. But you can extract value. So that was the other reason for posting this kind of stuff, was saying, hey, look, as bad as the feedback was, or as poorly as I received it, because I felt it was delivered poorly, there's still a good piece of information here. And for the next months, when I was recording stuff, I would stop and I would say, I realized I just said actually like 3 times in one sentence. Redo it. And I tried to improve. And it's all because someone gave me feedback that I really didn't like, but there was something constructive inside of it. And then in chat, but for that you need very strong self-esteem. A comment can destroy someone weaker. Yes, and I had some, I want to share this other example very briefly, because I think this is a good comment in the chat. So thank you from Kick. I think this is important. So yes, so for context, right, been programming for 21 years. I program in C# for about 17 years now. I've been a software engineering manager for 12 years. Like, I'm I'm doing okay in my career. I'm not done. I have a lot more to go, but I'm doing okay in my career. I should be proud of where I'm at. I know what I'm talking about for most things, right? I'm not an expert on everything, but I recently had someone basically try to just, I want to say they probably thought, I think they probably thought they were giving me feedback about a blog article. And this was on LinkedIn. They basically just they did the thing like repost with thoughts, and they shared my post. And they said, this thing is littered with errors. See how many you can count. And then listed 7 things, and I didn't feel like any of them were disagreeing with what I said. They just wanted to say it in their way. But I'm reading it being like, I agree with that. Like, that's not, I didn't say not that. But the feeling I got from that was like, why am I bothering to do any of this? Right? This is, I'm sharing this with you because I want you to understand the impact of this kind of thing. If you're doing it to other people, or you see colleagues and stuff going through this, I know what I'm talking about because I've been programming in this language that I wrote a blog about for 17 years. I'm not saying I'm an expert in every aspect of it. I have tons more to learn, tons. And I'm glad, because I want to be learning all the time. But like, to basically try and make fun of someone, like, that wasn't an attempt to give feedback. That was an attempt to belittle someone. And the feeling I got was, why do I even bother doing any of this if someone that's more experienced is just going to try to make fun of me? Like, truly, why would I bother doing that? It's not like no one paid me to go write that blog article. I had lots of other people say, like, thank you, it was helpful. And then it only took one person for me to basically go, like, why am I doing this? And I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up because 11 years ago I did. I started doing not the live streams and the video creation, but I was blogging about stuff in engineering management 11 years ago, and I gave up. And I've told myself, you're not giving up again. I don't care how many mean comments you get about something, you're not giving up. So I'm not going to. But to the point in the chat, yeah, like I'm only able to do that because I do have self-esteem about various things. There's certain things I'm not confident about. That's okay. I have to work on that. But you do need to have self-esteem, or else you would be crushed by some of the things that people say online. People are pretty sour. In chat, tech support / sysadmin for over 16 years, dev since 2013 as a passion. There you go, right? Starts with passion, so that's awesome. So, yeah, you can get really crappy feedback, right? The framing is everything. So in this example, we're talking about getting feedback that's not delivered well. How are you going to frame how you're getting that? My immediate reaction, I'm being transparent. My immediate reaction is I get upset, right? I get frustrated. I get angry. Not like breaking stuff in my room or anything, but I get mad at the person when they give me like harsh feedback. And I'm not talking about like my manager saying, hey, like, I need you to focus on this is my expectation. Not like that. I mean, when you get crappy feedback where someone clearly didn't put any effort into delivering their message, I get mad. And I get mad because I'm like, I would never give feedback like that to someone. Like I feel like you must be pretty terrible as a human to do that. So my immediate reaction is to get mad, but I do have to actively remind myself, like, no, like that's not what we're doing here. You have to change your framing. And if you change your framing, you can get some good stuff out of it. And that's what I want people to do for themselves. So when you start getting down on yourself, you're feeling embarrassed about breaking stuff, right? There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm going to check the chat. Thanks, Andy. I appreciate the shout out. Have you read The Happiness Advantage? Great book on this topic. I have not. Could you share more details on Twitch there? Lord Elrond 2023. Excellent, Elrond. Yeah, if you don't mind sharing some details about that, if you have a link to it, that'd be super cool. I've never heard of this, but be interested to hear more. Thank you. So the point about the framing is that you can start taking action and doing positive things even when you felt like something might not have been good. And I was just about to give an example. This is the drawback to live streaming. If I see something and it catches my attention, I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I wanted to give an example about, let's pick anything, right? You broke the build. No, let's a live site issue, because I want to use like a post-incident review kind of situation. So you have a live site incident that was caused by a change that you delivered, okay? And it's a common, like it's not, basically I would say like every software engineer does this at least once. And if you do it more than once, it doesn't mean it's a big F failure, because generally things are failing for different reasons. So lots of learning to do. But usually how this looks is that you put up code that you were working on. Now, during your development process, depending where you work, how your teams are structured, tester on that, you might have demoed it to a product owner, right? Throughout your development process, potentially other people were involved. Not uncommon. Then this goes up for review. Now you have people on your team reviewing it, right? Usually at least one person is going to sign off on this. So even if you worked alone, odds are you're putting it up for review and you're having one other person check it at a minimum. So now at least 2 people are involved. Now this is going to go through your build system. Now it's going to go through whatever testing automation you have. So who built the testing framework, right? Like, does it support being able to have different types of tests that you wanted to include? So maybe someone else is involved in that. You start flighting your change out. What types of alerting and monitoring do we have in place? Right? So like, is there a team that owns the infrastructure for that? Do they support the right types of alerting and monitoring that you would want? Oh, they do, but you didn't put them in place? Okay, well, is that totally your fault? Did the people that were doing your review or the other stakeholders that were signing off on your changes, did they mention those? It's a team effort, right? So yeah, you might have been the person that wrote the code, push submit, and it broke the build, or in this case, live site issue, but there were other people involved. So it's not you. You're not the only person. And hopefully you work at a place where you do blameless post-incident reviews, because if any post-incident review or post-mortem kind of situation where people are blaming people, you got to change that. You got to change that right away. But you can either go through that process and be like, I'm so embarrassed, right? All the emotions I talked about earlier, kind of going through this cycle of like, everything sucks. I'm never going to get promoted. My manager's never going to forget this. Like, all these things. And instead, you can acknowledge, yeah, that sucked, right? That wasn't good. That's okay. But what are you going to do about it? Right? This is a learning opportunity. Let's change our framing, not to be, I'm in the mindset where this is the most embarrassing thing. I'm never gonna recover from this. It's not like that. This is a learning opportunity for you. So change your framing. What are you going to do next time better? Right? You start setting that bar high. Because this is what we do. We have high expectations for ourselves. So what are you going to learn? What are you going to do better? These are all opportunities. If you change your framing, these are all opportunities. You stop the negative self-talk of how embarrassed you are, how stupid you must be for messing up. You change your framing. You have a bunch of opportunities in front of you. This is also why I say when people get constructive criticism, or even in this case, if you messed up, right? It's like, oh, I'm not going to get promoted now. It's not true. And you can transform your mistakes into really awesome learning opportunities. So take this situation. This is a little F failure so far because we haven't given up yet. So, okay, we do a post-incident review and we're looking at this situation and we go, you know what? We talked about writing tests for this to have, unit tests or some type of coded test like functional integration tests, and the testing harness or the testing infrastructure we have just doesn't really support this yet. So I skipped over them. Cool. Okay, there's an action. We can go improve that. We have a good scenario and a good use case for improving it. So maybe we can go invest into that and we can improve that. You could be the person that helps either deliver that or help the people that are responsible for it, like work through that because you have a good use case for it. There's one very positive thing that could come out of that. Okay, what about the code review process? Do you guys talk about that kind of stuff in your code review, right? Like, was anyone looking for tests? Do you need to maybe talk about, like, with your team, maybe we need to do a little bit more of a rigorous job on this. We should be asking each other, what kind of tests did you run on this? What kind of automation are you putting in place? Because I don't see it on the pull request. Like, is it on another review that I should be looking at, right? You have to change that process for your team, change the guidelines around it. Because if so, again, you could be championing that. That's another positive takeaway that you could get out of this. What about the alerting and monitoring? Kind of the same thing about the infrastructure conversation for the tests. We don't have those things because they're not supported. Cool. Talk to the team about it. How do we build that kind of stuff? Or you do support it, but someone like you forgot and your team wasn't looking at it on the review. Cool. How do you have a conversation with your team about making this better for next time? You can champion these things and transform. That was 3 crappy things that happened, and you can transform all 3 of them into something positive. And tell me that's not going to look good when it comes time for review. You think someone's going to go, oh yeah, but remember, you broke the build. You had that live site issue. No. They're going to say, such an awesome job for making our testing infrastructure better. Such an awesome job for leading this initiative. Why? Because you break the build once, you have a live site incident once, but your changes going forward help everyone else for next time. You can transform all of these things into positive situations if you change your mindset. Or you could not. You can sit there and being upset with yourself, and you can go, well, I never want to push code again because I'm going to break the build. Probably not the best option, right? But that's probably going to wrap up this part. So again, I do recommend people keep holding, hold your bar high for yourself. I think that's totally cool. Have high expectations, but don't be unkind to yourself. We give kindness to everyone else. We need to be kind to ourselves. We need to have positive framing. I think that's important. Okay, I'm going to blab about a couple more things here, and I like trying to use, the last little bit of the live stream for people to ask questions and stuff. So I think that I can see them all coming in. I'm pretty sure Restream on my computer has shown them from everywhere except LinkedIn so far, but maybe no one on LinkedIn said anything. Oh, you know what? I wasn't watching Instagram. No, sorry, Instagram. My bad. I don't think I see any messages there though, so that's okay. Next time Instagram, you got to send your messages in. Okay, so please send in your questions if you have any. I'm going to talk a little bit about what inspired this for me recently, and a couple of things. But first one was kind of going through. So I switched teams earlier this year at Microsoft, and this was sort of my first time syncing up with my manager to do conversations about performance for the team and things like that. And it's a really good opportunity for me personally to be able to make sure that my manager and I are aligned, because he would have been managing these individuals before. And if we sat down to talk and it was like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, this person's not like that, or like a just completely different perspective about what's going on. That would be a big red flag for me. Like, what am I doing wrong here? Right? And it's not to say that I can't have different perspectives. That's fine. But if we're so misaligned that it's like, are we even talking about the same individuals here? That's probably a cause for concern. So I had really good conversations about that. I was really happy to see that, like, I think we're on the same page for these things. That's good. And what I wanted to make sure is that as I'm going forward and working with my team, I know that the team I have now, I know that the team I had before and teams I've had before that, everyone's working hard. I have had only a very few number of people in my career, which so far for managing specifically has been 12 years, very few number of people that I would say we're not working hard. I'm not going to go into the details about it, but like pretty obviously not working hard. But the overwhelming majority, everyone is working super hard. Everyone's very motivated. They want to be doing better at what they're doing. They want to get to the next level, whatever that happens to look like. And people work hard. And what I want to be careful about is that when I give constructive feedback to people, I want to make sure that we talked about like a concept called radical candor. If you're not sure what that is, Google it. Radical candor is really awesome. It's basically putting yourself in this position where you've built a good trust and respect relationship with people, and you can be brutally honest with them. Like, you could be like, hey man, like, you actually looked really stupid when you were presenting. Something that brutally honest. And when you have radical candor, the people that you are having radical candor with, they understand that you want them to succeed. They understand that you need to be blunt with them to deliver your message effectively. So they really get it. They don't hear that and they go, holy crap, like Nick is being so rude. Like, who is this guy? it might catch them off guard, but they go, I know Nick wants me to succeed. I know Nick respects me. We have a good trust relationship. I probably still wouldn't use language like that for the record, especially with my employees. But if you think about your best friend, right? This is a good example. Your best friend, you probably have radical candor with, right? We have some friends where we'll always kind of say, oh, yeah, no, it's great. It's great. But your best friend that you're closest with, you'll tell them, man, that sucks. You shouldn't do that. That isn't good. Like, you can do that with them and they know that you're not being mean. They know that you want them to succeed. So that's what I want with my team. But I know that not everyone can see the constructive criticism, especially when they get it or they're observing it for themselves. Like, they know maybe something they want to improve on and they're down on themselves because the bar is set high and they're seeing that they're not quite getting there, and then they get down on themselves. So I wanted to make sure that I had some framing for this going through these conversations that will be coming up. So that was one reason. And then the other reason is, this is not software engineering related, but it's about content creation. So it might feel irrelevant to you, but I want to share this because it's just me being open and transparent. But over the past little while, I post a lot on LinkedIn. That's primarily like my major audience for making posts. Videos are for primarily on YouTube, but my posts are primarily on LinkedIn, and it's been really hard. When I say really hard, I mean, I set the bar high for myself. I want to be able to grow my audience, right? Part of being a content creator is being able to grow your audience. And if you're not totally familiar with how all this works, like, one of the things that you want to be able to drive up ultimately is not just like a follower base, especially with the direction that a lot of platforms are going. In a lot of the cases, follower base doesn't mean a lot. It's the number of impressions you get. Because the number of impressions are literally the number of eyeballs that are landing on your content, that your content's being served to. And what I've been finding is this feeling, and I'm correcting myself because I'm saying feeling now. I've been going over the past couple of months, especially in the last few weeks, I'm going, why am I bothering with this? There's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. And I'm going, man, like, my impressions are way down. Like, everything about this sucks. Like, it's not like I'm taking my foot off the gas and I'm doing less. So again, bar is set high and I'm feeling like I am failing at this. It doesn't matter how much effort I'm putting into it. I am failing at it. This is not good. Hey, Nick, why are you I'm going to repeat the things I said earlier. Why are you so dumb? This is so embarrassing for how much time you spend on it, right? If you had to talk to someone else who does this and explain this, they're going to think you're stupid. You're wasting your time, right? All of these negative self-talk things. And I realized something very interesting, and I should know better by now. But sometimes we need these crappy reminders. But it's all, for this scenario for me, this was a comparison thing. This does apply to software engineers because I've seen this come up a lot where people will say, hey, I feel like I'm behind in my career because so-and-so has gotten promoted and I haven't. Comparison, right? Comparing yourself to someone else who seems to be doing the thing that you want. They're getting the result that you want to have. And we compare, and then we feel bad about ourselves. People will do this in the gym. How come they can have that thing that I want? How can they be strong? How can they be stronger and leaner than me? That's totally not fair. Like, oh my God, I suck at this. Why am I even trying? Right? There's parallels to all this kind of stuff across everything. Comparison. So it happens a lot in software engineering for sure, especially for people that are focused on trying to improve in their career. It will come up where you start comparing. So this is what I was doing. I was comparing myself to people that have smaller accounts or even sometimes larger, but what's happening is a disproportionate amount of engagement, interaction, impressions, and I'm doing comparison. And this is not a good thing to do, at least not with this framing. So I had crappy couple of weeks feeling like, why am I even bothering to do this? So this is the other reason why I wanted to write this. Now, the funny thing for me, and it was really like that, yeah, you gotta write this one, is that I looked at the data. Compared to what I was doing a couple months ago, I have literally 50% more impressions. I felt like basically it went to nothing. I felt like nothing's working, and I literally have 50% more than I used to. So I wanted to share that, not to brag about my impressions. I didn't tell you a number. It doesn't matter. I said 50% more. I could have went from 2 impressions to 3, right? Could have. Doesn't matter. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I had so much negative self-talk resulting from comparison, which is completely irrelevant, unhealthy, adding no value, and in fact adding or subtracting value. And it was completely false. Sure, other people might be doing things that are getting them even better results, and that's cool. That's great for them. Right? That's awesome for them. I'm not them. It literally does not affect me in any way. And I had data that I could show myself to be like, Nick, shut up. The data says otherwise. So you're just making stuff up in your head. So again, I wanted to share that because I know that example was content creation, and some of you are like, I don't care, Nick, like I'm not making content. It's not the point. The point is that I'm trying to give you an example of being unkind to yourself and how you need to change that around. Because if you zoom out, right, you're a software engineer, you're trying to get to the next level, and it's seeming challenging, zoom out a little bit. What have you learned over the past year? Right? If you go back a couple years, would you imagine that you are where you are today? Right? If your answer is no, if you're like, or sorry, if you could imagine that you are where you are today and you're like, this is literally not exciting, like I'm not growing, like it's probably time for change, for sure. But I would guess for many people, you would go, holy crap. Like, I didn't think that. A year ago, I was at Microsoft still on a deployment team doing deployment stuff. I did not think in 1 year I would be in a completely different part. I shouldn't say completely different part. It's still Office 365, a completely different team, different space of things we're working on, completely different mission in something that I have no experience in prior. I did not expect that. So sure, when I'm feeling challenged by things and I'm like, man, like you really should be getting this. Like, are you stupid? Like, I stop saying those things now. Zoom out. Right? I learned so much on my previous team. I will learn so much on this team as well. You can make lots of things a positive situation, even when you're feeling negative, if you start changing your perspective. So that's going to conclude everything I wanted to share. Again, questions in the chat if you have them, happy to answer. Still haven't seen the happiness advantage. Maybe I'll give that a little search here while we're waiting for any questions. This is the book. So this book is by Sean Aker. It looks like. I'm going to put a link in the chat. I'm trying to see if I can trim off half this Amazon URL is like it's across all of my monitors, so I want to make it a little bit smaller here. Let's see if this works. Cool. This is the book that was referenced. So thank you for sharing that. Sorry if you're on a platform where you can't see it. I think LinkedIn doesn't show it. It looks like it goes to Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So apologies if you're on a different platform. Usually read your posts on LinkedIn. Thank you. But there's like 1,000 people posting about C#. Yep, there are. I prefer videos on advanced topics. My favorite at the moment are Haram Milan. Got a bit tired of Nick's videos. Yeah, there's other Nick. Yeah, Nick Chapsis. Yeah, and no, and that's good feedback. Thank you. I think It's like, depending on what you're being fed by the algorithm, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of C# stuff. There's a lot of, I was talking about this earlier. There's a lot of stuff that I see posted, C# or even, I see mostly C# stuff, but like really, really basic things. Like, I almost borderline, like, here's how you declare variables, and people are like, oh, this is the best. I don't really get it. I try to cover really basic stuff. I cover some more nuanced things, but yeah, I try to make them in videos basically, but I try to have different form factors for my content. So it'll come up on LinkedIn, but yeah, I try to mix it up a little bit, but I do appreciate that. So thank you. And maybe I should probably plug my stuff here at the end of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this mode here, and I'll put my face back on. I still got to figure this thing out. There's my face. Here I am. So I got courses on C#. I want to share that with you guys. So this is on Dome Train. This is a bundle. It's discounted when you get these together. Otherwise, you pay the full price for each of them. But I have Getting Started and a Deep Dive. So together, that's over 11 hours of content. The first one, Getting Started, if you've literally never programmed ever in your life, you can start with this one to get started with C#. Walk you through the basics. I always tell people this. When you go through these courses, I don't promise you like you're going to be an expert level programmer, because it doesn't make any sense at all. There is no 11 hours of course material that will make you an expert. What I do say is that you should have gone through the basics of all of this, and I do recommend in my courses that you program alongside me. I said that funny, alongside me, not along. So program alongside me. Programming and practicing is the best way that you will improve. You need to be practicing. So I have those. If we check out the other one by me, it is a refactoring one. So this is a course. You can see the curriculum here. The concepts in here are applicable to other programming languages, by the way. So if you're watching this, oh man, this looks really bad on Instagram. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Yeah, if you are watching this and you program in a different language, this is still applicable. It's just that all the examples are in C#, just a heads up. So if you're like, hey, what are some refactoring techniques? How do I work through this kind of stuff? But it's in TypeScript. This kind of thing will still be valuable to you. So just a heads up there. But that will conclude. I don't like plugging my stuff too much because it feels kind of gross to be very salesy. There's my face. But I do appreciate the time. So thank you so much for joining. I do these live streams every Monday at 9:30 p.m. PST. So you can tune in if you want to see more of them. Every Monday, 9:30 p.m. PST. And then throughout the week, I still have not found a cadence for it, but I have been trying to jump on and do coding live streams. So pay attention for that. If you want to get notified when that's happening, the best way is to follow me on some platform. So whatever you're watching this on now, probably follow there if you're not already. So best places for sure: YouTube, Twitch for programming stuff, Kick, I guess that's a platform. I would recommend those for live streaming. And yeah, I think that's all, folks. So thanks so much, and hopefully I will see you next Monday, if not midweek at some point when I'm coding something.